right, yes. Hello, I hope everyone can hear me. My internet just seemed to have given out for a second. Testing. All right, seems okay. I've lived in this apartment for, I don't know, 5.5 years. I can count on one hand the number of times my internet has had any kind of outage, and this week it's gone out twice. So, everyone, fingers crossed, please. Knock on woods or whatever you need to do. But welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Packet Bomb live experience. We're happy to have you here. We have a very exciting show for you today. Another exciting guest. It was definitely the network. It was Comcast. I'm going to blame Comcast. That's who its fault it was. No doubt. Or maybe the city of San Francisco, they turn my water off all the time with no notification. So maybe they turned off, the internet too. Speaking of San Francisco, I said 5.5 years. I live basically downtown in a semi-sketchy area. But hey, I walk to work. There's lots of restaurants and bars. And guess what? None of that matters. For 4 months, I've been stuck here. Next week, I'm taking off work. And I'm going to disappear to the woods. Well, a rural area. There are horses. And I'm going to sit, and I'm not going to look at my phone or look at email. I might read a book. That sounds nice, if I remember how to read a book. So that's my plans. I hope you guys are being safe. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys have more than, I don't know, what is this? 400 square feet in the middle of a densely packed city. What's new? Well, I see Hansong. I see Betty. Oh, hello, Jasper. I was talking to Hansong actually about flight sims and VR, and he turned me on to some of the better headsets, and you guys, if you've been following my live streams or stuff, you know that I built a PC for the first time in like 15 years, and I've been enjoying it. Playing a few games, and I learned about Star Wars Squadrons is coming out on my birthday in October, and I have very good memories of playing X-Wing, and then after that TIE Fighter in the late 90s. They were really, really amazing games, and I was hoping there was something like that when I built my PC. Turns out they haven't really had anything like that in 20 years until now in October. I think they were waiting for me to build a PC so they could release this game, and it's going to support VR. So I pre-ordered the new HP Reverb G2. I've never done VR before. Well, once. I tried my buddy's headset. I don't know which one it was. I lasted 5 seconds on a roller coaster and I had to take it off. So I hope I'm not throwing money down the drain. Yeah, Jasper, you did the German version of X-Wing. I feel like we've had that conversation before. I bought a flight stick. I started to go down the path of the really high-end Virpil VKB or whatever. But I thought, you know what? If I'm going to spend this money on the VR, let's dial it back a little bit. And I just went with, this little, let me bring it here and show you. This little guy, this little Thrustmaster T16000M. And I've been playing X-Wing Alliance, which is 20 years old, but people are still hacking on this game today and updating the graphics. And it looks amazing. So I've been starting to play that. What else? I don't really look at PCAPs that much in my day job, occasionally. This week we had a little bit of a war room going, and I hopped in as they were discussing it. Someone had a PCAP up on the screen, and I couldn't help myself, and we started looking at it, and we found a problem. And maybe I'll hold off talking about that, because maybe Chris has some ideas about what it is. Maybe you guys in the chat have some ideas. So we found a problem. We're just not quite sure what's causing it or what's doing it. Definitely seems to be the driver, but we'll talk about that. So, talking about Wireshark, that's what we're here to do. Talk about packets. You're here to learn about Wireshark, packet analysis, and that's why I bring in the best of the best of the best. And we are continuing in that series today with Chris Greer. You know Chris Greer from YouTube, from Sharkfest, from Pluralsight. He's got world-class content scattered all over the internet for your consumption. Packet pioneer. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Standing ovation for Chris Greer.
Hey, everybody. Jazz hands?
Jazz hands.
All right, cool. Anyway, hey, Carrie, it's great to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's fantastic to see you and talk to you. I know normally you spend your time in a tropical country, I believe, Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Is that right? But you are sheltering in the States. Yes?
Yeah. So Costa Rica, we about 2 years ago, we moved from Costa Rica. We were there for 5 years. And we moved from Costa Rica to Nicaragua 2 years ago.
That's right.
So, this whole global situation, kind of, we felt maybe it'd be a little bit better to come back to California, frying pan to the fire.
Well, it's, you could pick worse states, I think. There are better states. But, I think you just do some smart things. Be careful, be safe. It'll be all right. So yeah, how's it being
friends
back?
On live streams?
Yeah, talk to me.
It's good. It's been nice. It's been nice to be with family. Nice to have some extra time to work on some projects and get some things moving that I haven't had time to work on in a while. Like you mentioned, actually sit down and read a book.
Yes.
Who has time for that?
I know. Well, I was thrilled that most things have been closed. I was walking down the street on an errand, and I walked by my local bookstore, and they were open for the first time in months. Only X number of customers at a time, etc. So I went in immediately and bought some books for my trip. It was like almost a nice little turn to normalcy, just for a moment, browsing in a bookstore, But
sounds good.
Yeah. I forgot to mention this week, I dug this shirt out. This is the Sharkfest 19 Europe instructor shirt. I try to, I've got like a stack of shirts in the closet that I try to
Well done,
bring
sir.
out.
Well done.
Which of course we met at Sharkfest. I probably couldn't tell you what year that would have been, but I do remember going into your sessions and they're just being, so clear and straightforward and easy to understand, about some pretty heavy topics, right? Getting into TCP and applications and stuff. So what was your path to wind up as an instructor at Sharkfest?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Well, first of all, I got to say, I only brought one Sharkfest shirt back with me because upon leaving Nicaragua, we actually had to take part of the journey involved chartering a 2-seat Cessna from Nicaragua over to Costa Rica. So we had to, so we didn't get to bring a lot. So my wife and I were like packing a bag, getting all excited about what we can bring back. Yeah. And the pilot calls me up and he's like, so you guys each get a carry-on. So
that's it.
Kind of limited. Yeah. It was like, okay, do I bring this microphone or a stack of Sharkfest shirts?
Right. You got to bring your gear, man. Of course.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, but yeah, so I think I want to say it was maybe 2012, maybe 13,
right.
Where we crossed paths. And I remember walking into your session and thinking that guy's awesome with his 80s music and just your vibe and your jokes. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah. That's 80s music. I got
him. Oh yeah, that's one, that's Carrie's signature.
Yeah.
So for me, I got involved with Sharkfest through so a good friend and industry monster, Tim O'Neill. He has a site. It was Love My Tool, now is NetDatapedia.
Yeah.
And for a while, those guys were they were taking the video content and they were putting it on their platform for everyone to see before it was on YouTube. And so one year he just said, hey, the guy that usually does that part, taking the video content and putting it on Love My Tool, he couldn't go that year.
Right.
So he just said, hey, Chris, if I could talk to the powers that be and get you in there for getting some of that content out there, are you interested in going? So I was like, oh man, absolutely. I wanted to go to Sharkfest since it started. And I just remember being very starstruck my first time. I mean, a lot of people. I'm starstruck now, just looking at the chat window and seeing who's out there. But just to see who was there, and I think what struck me right away was I'm coming in feeling like, okay, I'm the least experienced guy in the room. I have nothing I could contribute from a technical perspective.
I think pretty much everyone feels that way the first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at first, so I thought, oh man, I'm just lost, and this is like, this is amazing, which it is. But I found out pretty quickly. I thought it was one of the first things I observed about Sharkfest, and it really leads to the greater community, was that you would have a presenter, you have an instructor, someone speaking about something, say carry yourself, and then following your session, you walk off the stage and you sit down and you're ready for the next person to come, and you're just as excited about what they're going to talk about. So you instantly go from speaker to student.
Yeah,
and
that's true. That's true.
I'd never seen
you look at the people in this chat, watching this, have forgotten more than I will ever know. But one, you never know where you're going to pick up just that one little tidbit that either you forgot or you just, everyone has gaps in what they know, and you never know where you're going to pick it up from, and you file it away and it becomes part of your tool belt. And then otherwise, and also it's a community, right? We all support each other, like each other, when we're not on stage, getting to hang out at Sharkfest, you never know. Everyone, I think, is really, really helpful and humble. That's why I come back, year after year, right? So how do you, just to switch, we'll come back some more on Sharkfest, but
sure.
What, your path, your career path, did you, go to school? Did you have a degree in something, industry related, or how did you wind up being good at Wireshark and packets? What was that career like?
Yeah, so for me, I studied electronics, and that's what my degree's in. But toward the end of my studies, networking was beginning to explode. So actually, across the street from the school that I was at, I went to a little tech college. Across the street was a company called Fluke. So John Fluke Manufacturing, with like the multimeters and oscilloscopes. And one day they put up a job, like basically on the job board, they put out a job description for an intern that they wanted to have somebody come in and basically work on their networking division, building small kit networks. So that sales guys could take those around and demonstrate their tools. At that point, I didn't even know Fluke had anything to do with networking testing and stuff. I was very new into that side of the world. So I went in and ended up getting the internship, and I started out, literally they brought me into a room with like a bunch of routers and switches and just said, you just need to make all this stuff work. And I was like, oh.
What is it?
I was like, my dad has a bunch of power tools, so I know what a router is. I'm an electrician's son, so I know what a switch is. But then I was like, oh, I don't know anything about this stuff. So the nice part about that job is it let me learn just how networking really worked. And at that time, there was a guy that worked there named Neil Allen, and he basically layer 1, layer 2 into layer 3 guy, really solid in the industry, wrote some books, but very passionate about it. And he became my first mentor on how this stuff really works. And he taught me about RFCs, and he taught me about the 802.3 standard, and those were the things that it was like required reading at the time. Right. So I went from that internship into doing help desk for their network analysis products. So the first product that I was assigned to support was called Protocol Expert, and came from a different company that they had acquired. But so I was answering phones from people that were using a protocol analyzer. It looks a lot like Wireshark. It's got that 3-pane display, and I just was fascinated by the different kinds of issues people would call in with. And the thing though is I wouldn't say I got in trouble for this, but I was more interested in helping them fix a problem than helping to troubleshoot the product, right?
Yeah.
So my responsibility was to help them, hey, is there a flashing red light that, is, if there's something wrong with the product, help. But
Right.
we're not there as the internet help desk to help them fix their problems.
That's a hallmark, I think, of a good customer service, a good troubleshooter, right? You're trying to solve the real problem. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And my curiosity was just like, what is it? And I couldn't let it go. So, so from there, that I would say that was my introduction into the world of packets and looking at trace files and getting excited about.
Yeah. I think about it quite a bit of like, what makes someone a good troubleshooter, a good, packet analyst, etc. And it's the base of it. It does seem to be just the curiosity. You could apply that to anything. It's not just packets. Anything in life, right? That where you just get something stuck in your brain and you want to follow that trail. I tell people at work, when you want to solve the problem, right? You want to go from point A to point B, but the real value to you is in the path that it takes to get there, because it's never a straight line. It's full of dead ends and red herrings, and you go read, this web page on this thing that turns out had nothing to do with the problem, but all that experience is where you really build your knowledge and you enjoy it. I think that's the thing. You enjoy the process, and the curiosity just keeps driving you. That's kind of what I found a commonality between people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we all have a passion to really get to the bottom of the issue and see what's really happening and understand it.
Yeah. 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 Got to get off, Hansong. Those toll-free lines cost money. Got to get off the calls fast. Yes. That's, if you find yourself working in a support role where the metric is time spent on the phone, then you may want to find a new job. Because if you enjoy the process of troubleshooting, that's probably not the place for you.
Right, exactly.
So when you were going through that, is there any resources, books or experiences or anything that really stick out in your mind that were like really move the needle, if we use that phrase, that stick out in terms of that really helped you out a lot that you recommend to people?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think Hansong mentioned it last week, I believe, the Stevens book that he had mentioned, that was helpful. I got early and have done my best to maintain my CCNA just as like core networking stuff, just to keep up on what, I think that's a generally good, wide, way to see what's going on in the industry. And then, I think it is just awesome to have a mentor.
Right.
When someone is willing to share their information and just latch on.
Yeah.
And I think that happens in a lot of environments, and just someone that is willing to share their experience and help you, and to, not think that any of your questions are stupid, but really help you get experience, which I had several. I had amazing mentors.
Yeah. And today it doesn't require, to be like that person at work that you look up to or whose experience it. Literally half the people in the chat I would consider mentors, people that I have studied their work, books, videos, whatever there is. You may never even speak to the person that could really be your mentor. I think that's one of the values of what we have today, is so many opportunities to get mentoring from people in that way.
Exactly. And to that, that's more my goal with even my YouTube channel and my audience, is just to help them. If they don't have a packet mentor, then to say, hey, this is what I've learned, and I'm willing to help you learn the same.
Right.
I don't know everything like nobody does, but
definitely not.
This is what I do know.
Speaking of, let me circle back to that thing. At work, we're looking at, so application, they, I think, upgraded to a 10 gig card from a 1 gig card. And then this web application is failing. It won't load, right? So they had found a place in the PCAP where it looked like some retransmissions, and then, FINAC, connection close. So, but they're not sure why that's happening. So we start looking at it. And my Wireshark, everyone has their own Wireshark setup, right? You have your columns set up the way you like. And so, when you see things that Like I like to have TCP length as a column. Some people like to have the total frame length, and that's fine. Just, what you're used to, what your preference is. And I noticed that the retransmission, so it's like get, response, 3 or 4 frames, and then the last one is being retransmitted, and the payload was only 4 bytes. I was like, that's pretty small. Is that a problem? Not really, I don't think, but I was like, that's small. I mean, why is that? And I did a quick look for anything greater than 0, less than 10, and that was the only frame in the entire PCAP that was less than 10 bytes. Or, that was an arbitrary number I picked. And I looked, the total frame length was 64 bytes, right? Which I believe is the Ethernet minimum. And I looked at the end of this one, it had a VSS monitor trailer appended to the end of it, that was like 2 bytes. So the actual frame itself minus that was 62. So I assumed that the driver appended that as padding, right?
Right.
If you do some Googling, you can see that people have run into problems when they've seen this VSS trailer. So we've given that, to our engineering team to see what's going on. But I also found that this driver is a DPDK driver. I'm not sure if you've come across Data Plane Development Kit. It's like a whole new model of for really high packet processing, high throughput packet processing. It gets some kernel stuff out of the way. I was just reading on it yesterday. So if anyone has information on DPDK and packet capture and how all that stuff works, if you've run into it, I'd love to hear about it.
Sure.
But what we found was there were a couple of instances where, say, a Palo Alto firewall might drop those packets if they see this particular trailer on it. There was, I think, a Cisco device that had a problem. So we're trying to find out. I'm pretty sure the customer has a Palo Alto firewall, but so that's literally in flight right now. But it was fun to jump back in the packet trenches, as Hansong says, for a few minutes.
For sure. But I think though that what's nice about an exercise like that, Carrie, I haven't seen that exact problem, but the things that you just mentioned about the trace file are exactly the kind of things that would make my little antenna go up. Like, okay, I'm seeing this retransmission here. It's small. Why is that? And I think sometimes what gets overwhelming about packet analysis and talking to people, it's like, I feel like I can't fix all these problems because I've never seen them before. And the thing about it is that never really goes away. You find new things. Right. I mean, how often do you? Yes, you do end up troubleshooting some things again that are exactly the same, but as technology moves, as stacks move, think about how much has happened to TCP over the last right. Even 10 years, right? Like things change, behaviors change, so it comes down to knowing the fundamentals well, like really understanding how things should work, and when we see aberrant behavior, just stick on it. Why am I seeing that? And don't give up until you find the answer.
Code is changing everywhere. Operating systems, the network infrastructure, people are upgrading. So nothing is static there. So circling back, one of my new sessions, one of my new favorite sessions, one of my favorite new sessions, I think that's the right order of words, is one you started doing called Aha Moments, where there's no presenter with a screen and looking at packets, but I thought there was a lot of wisdom being shared. What is that session about? And then tell me what maybe one of your aha moments.
For sure. So what you're talking about is, I think we did it in Mountain View the first time. And prior to Sharkfest, we were just spitballing about a session to do where people just share their light bulb moments in packet analysis. Like, we all have them and they're exciting. It's like when something really clicks for you, when you really get it. Like, you might have read the textbook, you might have seen it in the packet headers, but it's not until you really understand it and could even explain it, and like those kinds of moments. So, and actually several people that are on the chat right now were in that session as well. And I was interested to see what they would share as well. But For me, there have been many, many aha moments as far as just things connecting and light bulbs going on. I think a big one that happened for me was one time I was troubleshooting an issue for a client where it was slow throughput. They had a massive connection across the country. I think one office was like in San Francisco, the other was like in Miami somewhere. And they were having a really hard time moving data across it. And there was a lot of layered issues with it. Like one part of it was the receive window on the receiver down in Miami. Another issue that we ran into was just the application, the block size of the application, giving data down to TCP to then move that data. So it was layered. There was not one thing that was the fix, but even when we upped the receive window, we still had a block size issue on the sender side.
Right.
And then we found out using that particular protocol at the time, it's been years, but at the time it was SMB, and SMB over WAN is horrible. We know this, but to understand why it was horrible, right? Why specifically, and to learn that at that time that you could, to write a file, the block size was different than to read a file.
Right.
So just by turning it around, all we did is we increased the receive window in Miami for a little bit. Then we, instead of pushing the file down, we asked for the file, and the performance went up fourfold.
Yeah.
And because we went from a 16K push to a 64K read. Anyway, but not to get into the minutia of that, but the aha moment came where it was like, whoa, like, having the application interact with TCP really matters. We have to understand that. From that, I came to understand and appreciate I think it was a field in Wireshark that you had something to do with, time since push bit.
Or byte since push. Yeah.
Byte since push. Yeah. And that actually would have been a great field at the time. So that, I think that was a big.
You must not have had still heads in path, I guess, because the riverbed would fix that for you.
Well, yeah, and then I mean,
there you go,
and I think it was when WAN acceleration.
Little plug. Speaking of Sharkfest, we are virtual this year. We talked about it. I don't know the details. I think right now there's a wait list. It's not clear if they're going to open up more spots. Maybe they will. Maybe if everyone shakes the gates loud enough, they'll open them up, let more people in. But you are doing one of the pre-conference classes. So what is that going to be about? Yeah.
So you're right. Sharkfest is virtual. Let's shake some gates, people. So it has filled the general conference has, but the pre-conference courses are still open for enrollment. There's 3. I'm doing the one on basically Wireshark foundations, either taking the newbies and helping them get the most out of the conference to follow, or if you're a seasoned vet and want to. There could be something that I do that's new, or there could be something in one of the demonstration trace files that takes a new angle on something. Right. Most people still get something out of it. So it's going to be 2 days. It's going to be the Monday and Tuesday of that week, and you can look at the Sharkfest page. I think we have a link to it down below.
Yep. In the description of this live stream.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I'll be doing that.
Fantastic.
And also, there's going to be one on Wireshark profiles that Betty's doing, and one on TLS decryption stuff that Saki's going to do. So
I will reach out to both of them and try to get both of them on here before Sharkfest kicks off, so everyone can learn about it.
Sweet.
You know what? Why don't we give the people a little taste, and you can give us some time-tested tips and tricks, courtesy of Chris Greer. If you want to share your screen, let's do that.
Sure thing. Let's do this. Let's have some fun. So I think what Carrie and I talked about before this live stream was just to throw out a few basic things that, for me, when I'm looking at a trace, how to make sense of the mayhem and how to go from, oh my goodness, I'm looking at a trace file, to actually beginning to dig in and find some issues. So before we cut over and I share, I was thinking about it, and when one thing that's tough for me when I'm working with a client and they send me a trace, one thing that I now kind of refuse to do is if they send me, a gig trace file. Oh, Chris, here's the issue that we're having, and here's a trace file.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, before I ever do that, and before you ever do that, try to get into the habit of ask a lot of questions. Where was this captured? How was it captured? Are we confident that the problem even happened?
Yes.
I have combed through perfectly fine trace files with people, and all to find out that we were capturing in the wrong place at the wrong time. So you can really save yourself a ton of headache by being as precise as possible and capturing well.
Absolutely. That I try to preach, do the more work you put up front of before even opening Wireshark, the easier time you will have when you're in Wireshark.
Yes.
Be the detective, capture, have a good capture plan, reproduction plan, and then verify the data. The amount of time someone back when I was an engineer and people would escalate to me, we've looked at this, this is the problem, the customer's upset. I would just like, when did the problem happen? Okay, look at the PCAP file properties. Okay, you didn't even cover the time of the problem. So take this back, try again. Anyway, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And where were we capturing? Was it physically on the server or client, or somewhere in the middle? How can that begin to impact what we will see? Get my mind in the path of packets, or if I have several points along the path, what is in the middle? Like, what are some of the things I can learn about the network? So that was definitely a big thing along the way that I've tried to learn and share. Also, about, before we get into the packets as well, knowing your fundamentals. I think when you watch somebody else, like this can happen at Sharkfest, and it's normal. When you're watching somebody look at an issue and they say, oh, look, there it is. It's so clear. It's actually normal to feel like, I don't see that. I don't understand.
It's not so clear. Yeah, clear as mud. Got it.
No. Yeah, exactly. And that's okay. Like, a lot of times the examples that we share, Carrie, I've seen you do it, myself, other presenters. A lot of times these are cooking shows.
Oh, absolutely.
Where all you do is put this spice and that spice and this spice, and bing, it comes out of the oven, and it's just perfect, And you didn't see all the burnt attempts and how long it can take, So sometimes, people ask me on my channel, like, how long does it take you to find a problem? I'm, well, first of all, have I ever seen it before? Is it brand new? How much data do I actually have? But always, in every case, it comes down to knowing the fundamentals well. You gotta know, how should it work? And then you can see aberrant behavior. So that's why a lot of times you'll hear us like we're like parrots, it's like, learn the fundamentals, learn the fundamentals. Because we can't possibly teach every problem we've ever seen, but we can teach you how things are supposed to work well.
That's right.
Right. So, so good. So let me just share my screen. Let's look at a trace.
All right, here we go.
All right, we're just looking at a little capture here. Can you see it okay?
Yeah, I think. Double checking. Yeah, I think so.
All right, awesome. Okay, well, this is just there's nothing particularly wrong about this trace. It's not just, this screaming bad problem or anything. This was just some basic traffic that I had captured. It's been a few years, but it's one that I like to point out just a few things, some rabbit holes that I try to teach people to avoid, and also some things that I try to really understand as I'm looking through a trace file. Okay, so one that I'll point out is going back to fundamentals. Okay, so take this for example. I open up a trace right away. I can see, all right, I got a handful of different protocols going on here. But let's just take a look at this first packet. Now, this is a question that I get quite a bit through the different social means and such. is take a look at a packet, and they'll come down, they'll go, oh, looking through the header values and stuff, and they'll go, oh, window size. My window size is 4059. Chris, that's low. That must be my problem.
For sure. Nailed it.
Or in the opposite direction, come down. Oh, window size. Oh, the window size is 333
even
bytes.
Worse.
Oh, that must be my problem. Okay, right there. So why would it be that low? And if it was really low, would it even work, right? So in this case, well, we caught a conversation as it was already happening. We missed the handshake. We missed the scale factors. We don't know the true window size that's being advertised.
Yeah.
So right there, Carrie, you, myself, maybe the ones that have seen this in the past, we've looked at it and go, oh, well, we just missed the scale factor. And Wireshark's telling us that.
Yep.
Like, I don't know how to multiply this guy. So
that's right.
I can't show you the true value.
It's a sin to not capture the sin.
Ooh, well said. Well said. So, I mean, this is something to back to the point of fundamentals. So, I mean, is this a monster problem? Is our network collapsing because of this value? Well, no. But why is it that value? And oh man, I should have captured earlier if this was the conversation that I was looking for, right? Yeah. So that's a common one that people will stop by and ask.
So in that way, kind of going back to the setup discussion, it's like when you're capturing, if it's reproducible, hopefully it is, you need to close the application, disconnect the shared drive, whatever. Just got shocked by the colors.
Don't hate on my colors.
Sorry, there's going to be comments. But you disconnect the network drive, do all that, make it quiet, then start to capture, then fire up the application, then map the network drive.
There we go. Yeah, do your best to, really back out and start capture and then go in. Do our best to do that. Sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes I'm troubleshooting in a back-end system, a database, and the handshake was a while back and it's not coming again. So Absolutely. Then you have to think around it. So that's a good example, Carrie. So take this for example. I'm just picking a packet out here, right? So, okay, my window size is 333. Well, if I see a packet go in the opposite direction that is larger than 333, then I know that's not my true window.
There you go.
Right? And is it likely that a server is actually sending that value out? In most cases, right? So those are questions I ask myself, like, okay, what makes the most sense, right? And that's where we can start to better understand what we're seeing. So, all right, you just laughed at my colors.
I wasn't laughing. I was just shocked.
And that's my way of the highway. Actually, Hansung taught me to say that. I think I heard Hansung say that one time in a session in Sharkfest, and I was like, yes, it is my way of the highway, because this makes sense to me. I like loud, bright syntax, man. Yeah. I like to see when new connections happen, and I just like them to jump out. And so I pick bright green. And it's also kind of a branding thing too, since Packet Pioneer, that's one of my colors. So right there, it's actually my two colors, like,
nice.
Dark blue and green. So, all right, that's another thing though. That's actually a point let's talk about. Like, what is it that you're troubleshooting or that really matters to you that you really want to have jump out at you? And if you like to color it, color it. The visual does help.
Yeah.
Like, for me anyway. Again, some people think it's crazy and they're like, oh, so much better. So much better. It just depends on
when you keep running into same type of issues, same patterns, I've certainly done it. I'm going to put a coloring rule for that so I don't have to rediscover it every time. I've already discovered it like 5 times. So maybe I'll put a coloring rule and it'll just tell me that next time when I see it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Thanks. Betty just backed me up. She said my colors are fabulous. Thanks, Betty. Thanks, Betty. So, and I did the opposite for, I don't know. I have a different color for fins too. My fins are blue. Just so for me, okay, green, boom, something opened, and then it shut down, and the blue helped. I think another little tip for the peeps is something that has helped me to develop more into understanding TCP better is really understanding the options.
Yeah.
That there's a personality to TCP, and I'm just picking a packet here, and let's throw down a little stream filter. So no, I could say no two stacks are created equal, but like as soon as there's so many variables that go into each behavior. So I think something that I've been asked about is, should it do that, or like there's got to be some consistency, Chris. There's got to be and there is to a point, absolutely. But here's a small example. All right, I'm just on a SYN, right? So if I take a look at the SYN-ACK that comes back, well, right here, my options, if I came down to my options there, if I just toggle between those real quick, one of them has an end of option list and the other doesn't.
I think my big fat head's in the way, but.
Right. So on the outbound from the client, here I see MSS, I got my scale, I got SAC. And then in the opposite direction, I see those same, I got my MSS, my scale, SAC. But the client isn't using end of option. So, I mean, there's just little things like sometimes people can get super hung up. I think this is the thing that I'm building to. We can get super hung up over small things that might not be involved. Right. And really ask yourself, is this what's breaking? Is this what I dug in here to look for?
Yeah.
Is this really, because sometimes I think we dig so far into the weeds where it's like, let's back up a second. Is this slow? Is this, is it completely broken? Like what are we troubleshooting? Keep our eye on the thing that we are troubleshooting. Like I encourage my clients, let's like write that down in big letters on a whiteboard somewhere. Because it helps us to keep our eye focused on that is our end game. We're trying to solve this problem. Because there's a million things literally in a trace that will cause us to get distracted and go down these rabbit holes.
Right, absolutely.
Right? So,
I mean, Hansang has said it in the chat. I've heard him say that from the stage. When you hear hooves beating, think horses, not zebras. And certainly to get to the problem, that's what you want to do. I do think, when we go back to that curiosity conversation, sometimes getting lost in the weeds is how you build your knowledge. You go, oh, this is interesting. What is this about? And you chase it and you learn something new. Well, it had nothing to do with the problem, but now that's something that, is in your troubleshooter's brain because maybe it'll come around in a different issue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. One other thing, let's talk about, the ugly black lines and red letters. Mm-hmm. I'm just coming down here to a little section.
Very scary.
And yeah, it is, right? Ooh. And, I left that as the default. So, the people watching that have these TCP issues, they'll see that as well. I think another thing to keep our eye on the ball with is to not get overly anxious about things that look so horrible like this. Like, for example, I'll get a lot of questions about duplex. Right. Like, hey, Chris, I see 100 duplex. Is that my problem? And okay, it depends. Could it be involved in what the root cause is? Sure, but that's TCP trying to recover from something, right? If we were getting a spinny wheel for 30 seconds, right, and we just saw one batch of duplex, is that really where we're spending 30 seconds? Why don't we focus more on where we're spending time and what is really breaking? So not saying that this is not involved, but don't get overly worried if you see a few black lines and red letters. Right? Because we can really go down that rabbit hole. Now, there are some of them that would definitely catch our attention, right? Ooh, window full. So maybe we're running into some issues there. So that's one other tip. One last one I'll share for the people. Something I really like to see is if I come down to, let me just pick any old packet here. And I'm going to come down to timestamps. And I'm going to right click this guy. Time since previous frame in this TCP stream. This is a super useful measurement for me.
Is that now enabled by default in the TCP
It
preferences?
is.
Yeah. You used to have to turn it on.
Sure is. Yeah. So I'm actually even going to name this delta in context. Sure. So what that does, if the peeps haven't used this one before, I'm just going to throw it on over here, throw them down. There we go. Go with your friends. Okay. So now I've got a time of day. So now I know loosely, hey, if an issue happened around 12:56, I'm in the right area at least. But delta time, that gives me the amount of time between delta displayed. That's the way that I have this this column set, right? So this packet is 3 milliseconds after the one before it. This is 644 microseconds after the one before it. Now, that's great if I'm only looking at a single TCP stream, but as we can see here, things start going in parallel, right? I start to have several connections. So my delta time, sometimes, and I've had people do this in class, they'll open up a trace, they'll sort on delta, and they'll look for, they'll sort on the delta time. I go, oh, great, I'm really going to find the problem now. And they'll come down and, look for these kind of deltas. But again, these are not within context to the conversation.
Yeah. That's true.
So I like to have a little delta in context, sort that guy, and then just start hunting around. And things that my eye will look for. So first of all, okay, 5, now notice what I have. In my true delta time, I had, 1 second between one packet and the one before it. Delta in context, this shows me, okay, I got 5 seconds here. But, again, back to fundamentals, I might not be worried that a connection is taking 4 seconds to shut down or 5 seconds to shut down. Also, up here, thankfully this is open. This is not encrypted. I can see those gets. But here on client side, on the client, he's sending some gets out, and I see some of those are 4 seconds, some are 3. So just my mind is willing to jump over those. I'm not as worried about client wait time. Maybe it just took the user 3 seconds to go and click something.
Yeah. We've got a question I hear quite a bit in the chat. Maybe you want to tackle that. And the possible reasons for hundreds of dupacks for the same sequence number.
Yeah, you got a latent network, right? If you and I are sitting right next to each other on the same port, I'm sending you dupacks to tell you about a gap in the sequence number. You get those acknowledgments and you retransmit. But that's if me and Carrie are sitting on the same switch and we only have 1 millisecond of delay between the two of us. But if Carrie moved to China and he and I have 200 milliseconds of latency between us, now it takes longer for my dupacks to get to him to inform him of the missing gap of data. So that's a lot of times where you'll see hundreds of dupacks when you have a lot of latency between two endpoints. And one endpoint is just doing its best to tell the link partner about successful traffic that was received while, hey, Carrie, don't forget, a couple hundred milliseconds ago, you sent me this sequence number. Don't forget, as soon as you can, get back around to that sequence number.
So bytes in flight are much higher with more additional latency, as Hansong says. That packet train has left the station. There's no stopping it. So if one car gets lost in flight, the rest of them are going to show up, and they're all going to get dupacked. So, as DJ has said in the chat, lots of bytes in flight, so they're all going to get axed. So, let's. Is there any? We can do some Q&A here. Happy to.
Yeah, let me.
If you have any additional things here you wanted to highlight.
Just one quick one before we come off the trace. So things that I am going to look for, just to wrap up this idea for people. Things like when a server is responding. I just did my sort on my TCP delta, so I'm interested in, okay, this took 517 milliseconds to hear back from a server and get a response. That's now interesting. Let me grab my TCP stream filter. Let me put my stuff back in order. And now, so this is something that might jump out to me. So again, and I'll stop my screen share. But again, knowing those fundamentals well, and when we see something that is outside of those fundamentals, being willing to go down that rabbit hole and really try to examine what's happening. But those are some of the top things, those are just some quick tips that I do when I'm looking at a trace. And know that you're also not alone when you open up a trace file and your eyes are crossing and you're going, oh man, that guy Carrie's really smart. He'd figure this out in 30 seconds. It takes me 2 weeks. But we didn't see all those times that it took Carrie 2 weeks.
Absolutely. I sometimes sort of highlight some of those instances where people struggle. I literally have posted one that I've talked about one that someone posted and said, I've been struggling with this for 2 months and I can't figure out the problem. Does anyone know? And because it's a problem I've seen 100 times, it was MTU. It's like he spotted it in like 2 minutes. And it's like, so I like to highlight those just to sell the value of learning packet analysis. But absolutely, I've had the crying in the shower trying to understand what the problem is, and sometimes you don't, or it takes a long time to arrive there, for sure.
Well, Carrie, you can always call me and we'll cry together over your trade. I'm offering that as a service.
Let's see what we've got here. Can you talk about how you ask your customer to correctly gather the capture flags, options?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. I actually just this morning got off a call with one of my clients over on the East Coast. So this is exactly what we just did. We got on a call. They described the problem. And much to what you just said, Carrie, I just says, okay, let's back out. A big question that I always have right away is, can you reproduce it on demand? Intermittent is a pain because we got to set up like a rolling buffer. We got to do a ring buffer to try to get a space of time to capture. You got to stop it. Unless we have one of the...
Oh, right.
Unless we have one of those fancy,
a big box with lots of disk space.
Yeah, unless we have one of those. But if we don't, and we're doing it with T-Shark, with Wireshark, then setting up a ring buffer, trying to give that thing enough horsepower to catch it, and then to stop it, like you mentioned. So is it on demand or is it intermittent? That's a big one. Also, are we confident that we have the right application and that our symptoms are not hiding something, right? Like sometimes, these systems are so interconnected anymore.
Right.
It's like we don't want to assume, I'm having a problem right now. I've been called about, well, Chris, my DNS is slow, and you like, okay, and they'll send me a trace file that's filtered on DNS. Right. And then things aren't adding up, and I'm like, you know what? Can you just like scrap that capture filter for me? And sure enough, it was some issue that ICMP was flagging,
right? Or you're missing the ARP, or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think definitely if you can capture with no filters, because you can always filter it later.
Absolutely.
If you can. Sometimes it's not always possible, depending on where you're capturing, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
What else we got? I mean, we've got some very smart, talented people, so some of you guys are knocking out the questions in the chat. And honestly, I would encourage everyone to scroll back through. There are some absolute gems that have been dropped in this chat by our experts in there.
For sure.
Let's see.
And maybe I'll go back through and turn some of those into videos for my channel, so you can. Yeah, that'll give me channel fodder.
Yeah. Do you mean run dump cap for rolling capture rather than T-Shark? Would T-Shark run out of memory?
I haven't had that problem. T-Shark throws some bells and whistles on top of the process that dump. I mean, you're probably going to get more. You're going to get higher performance out of dump cap. Yeah. Like if you're in an environment where you're at 1 gig and you're getting some pretty good performance that you need to capture well, I probably would go to dump cap just to take off some bells and whistles. But if it's low throughput client end,
right, not a big deal. Yeah.
Pick one.
Yeah.
My opinion.
All right, let's see. Anything else here that we should we're right at about the hour. So we'll wrap up here in a second, and then of course as the stream ends, we'll hop in the chat, and if there's any additional questions, we can knock it out in the chat. So Sharkfest, we've talked about coming up. You're probably one of the more consistent people I know putting out content on YouTube now. I think Hansong is maybe building up some momentum, right, on the TCP Tuesdays and Q&A Mondays. I forget. I
thought it was like MSS Monday.
Maybe it was. But when people, the videos I think people put out, are very useful. But sometimes people want a more structured, organized approach. So what do you have? I think you have some stuff on Pluralsight as well.
Yeah. So I got two options, and if the people watching want to go check out, I just got a new website out there that talks about these two options. And so one is Pluralsight, like you mentioned. So for a while, I've been wanting to get some on-demand content that is more of like a course with like sample trace files, and there's like downloads that you can
hands-on stuff.
Download all the traces, and exactly. And we really shred into some cool stuff with TCP. I just had one go out on visualizing traffic with Wireshark, so going through some of the graphs and going through IO graphs, stream graphs, flow graph. And then so those are on demand, and Pluralsight, it's a subscription-based service, but I think it's pretty reasonable.
Right.
I think an individual can get it for like $29 a month or something.
We use it at work, and topics cover the gamut. Everything you probably want to study in the technology is there.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff. And I think for me, one of the reasons why I liked Pluralsight is because, like you mentioned, there's so many people studying CCNA, AWS, Azure. There's a lot of different
I heard
crossover
cloud is something that's coming. I heard it's going to be real big.
It'll never stick.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
But yeah, so
it'd be like ATM.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So there's the on-demand stuff. There's also a virtual classroom Wireshark training that I'm going to start doing. And that's open enrollment, so people can...
Is that live?
It's it's going to be live on Zoom.
Very cool.
So 2 days. Yeah. And, because I think I've just heard some feedback from people that, a week-long course and your brain kind of turns to mush by Wednesday anyway. So I'm trying to give you like the biggest punch stuff and the most useful, in my opinion, about doing troubleshooting and digging down into issues in 2 days. So you can, there's links to my website in the chat down below, and you can go check that out. Those two things, and those are like live in person, and you can ask questions and a bunch of labs, and so and also through YouTube, because I think that there's a lot that the industry needs to see, and it needs to be free, and these are
absolutely
core skills every engineer should have.
Right. Well, fantastic. So we've got, a bunch of links to YouTube, your courses. Is there anywhere, I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly which links we put, but where can people find you if they want to connect with you? Twitter, LinkedIn, or what?
Absolutely. YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, all the above. Stop by my website, send me a message.
PacketPioneer.com, Packet Pioneer on Twitter, I believe.
Yep. It's Packet Pioneer at Twitter, Chris Greer on LinkedIn, you'll find me. So, and if by now, if you Google Chris Greer Wireshark and you can't find me, then I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah. No, people sometimes reach out to me for consulting, and I just not something I want to take on. So I'm like, what was his website? And I'll Google Chris Greer. Now I know it, but I'll Google it and say, here, go talk to this guy.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. You've sent me some interesting stuff over the years, so thank you.
All right, folks. Well, Chris, thank you so much for spending this hour with us. I think people really appreciate it, enjoyed it. I hope they reach out to you for their, TCP learnings in Wireshark. We look forward to seeing you at Sharkfest this year online, and hopefully in person soon after that. Yeah, Kerry, it's been great to be here and to see all the people that have joined us this morning. So thanks for stopping by. All right, guys, we'll hop in the chat for a bit, and then we'll see you on the next live stream.